Hi, everybody. It's Mark, recording in the wee hours here. Just an introduction to this autumn 1940 turn that's coming up. I do want to point out one thing that in through the course of the play and the commentary of this 1940 turn, actually the whole season, um, I've been talking about getting the Sealion card at the beginning of next summer in 1941. In reality, because the war started about 6 months late, um, there's a variety of cards here that the Germans may want to play that they haven't had a chance to play yet. For example, if I want to do two treaty cards or a puppet government card, right now I've only got time to do one if I want to start really doing a sea lion effect starting at the beginning of spring next time. I might have a little bit more I want to do here as the Germans, and I've put together a playlist of cards here, um, in the assumption that I may not want to start Total War until 1942, simply because it did start late, the limited war. So keep that in mind when you listen to some of my commentary about this turn. As I talk a lot about preparing for the upcoming sea lion, but it may be that I won't actually do it next summer. All right, with that said, here's the season fall 1940. Enjoy. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.
Right, hello folks, Mark Hanna here, Wisdom Gaming. So, we're starting, and I'm excited to finally get started back on this again. It's been a week. In autumn here, the seasonal victory phase uh, moved the marker from 1 VP to 0 VP. So it's still Allied Crusade, though, until I get that third Allied objective. So we're going to try to do that now with case yellow. So let's proceed with that. So we've got the action, the seasonal phase. So I think when we discard the old card, these guys come off. These were the interned units in Vichy, France. They're now free to be set up at will in Germany. So they'll put one, let's just put one over here in Hamburg. We're going to need that eventually to go to Copenhagen and eventually transport to Narvik, ideally. Then I like to put down, you see everything here in Germany. I'm not sure, probably not, but usually like to make sure that I have something that can go into Yugoslavia in case something goes strangely south. And I have an extra unit here, so we'll go ahead and put him here as well. Okay. Now we're going to discard case yellow, and we're going to do the option card segment. We aren't going to be able to build any more ships. That's done for the Germans. So let's see here. Option card segment, zoom in on this. And I didn't zoom in on it. What's going on? All right, here it is. Operation Wasserubung. Okay. One of these days, I will look up how to pronounce that. Okay, card 5, German mobilization. That's been played long ago. Right, so in the option card segment, which is the next part, select one target minor country, which will be our friends Denmark, Norway. Well, they're not our friends exactly. And we will declare war upon them. All right, we don't want to roll on the diplomatic incident table in this case. Sometimes you do, but normally you're going to be playing these operations to declare war. You never know, though. Sometimes you might want to try to mess around with the influence or gain some influence somewhere else on the map, and this is one of the few ways to do it. Okay, so let's declare war. What's going to happen is this Doesn't get set up on the map. That's the only military unit that the Norwegians have. It goes into the British force pool to be built as a minor. Okay, so we declared war. It's now on the British side, Allied side, and we get replacements. So let's take care of that. We won't forget about, we don't have the Italian war economy yet. It doesn't come in till next year. Let's zoom back out. So you can see it's not coming in till then, but we do have the minor production. And since Italy's our only minor, we will be getting those steps, a step. So let me get that out. Okay, so here's our reinforcements. We're going to get the Italian mechanized corps, I guess it is. A couple of regular corps. This one cost us 2 corps of our 4 steps. We need these immediately, as you'll soon see. And then this armored unit will also deploy. Now, what I'm going to do is we need to set up. The Italians are still mobilizing. So since they're still mobilizing, they can't move or attack outside of their own dependence yet. I do believe, though, that I can send a German unit in. So we're going to send some German troops into Italy, which we'll need in North Africa. This airborne unit should be, I think I can still place it here. Yeah, I've got 2 guys there. We'll place it there. Okay. And the Italian Expeditionary Force. We need to get them down here. There's really no good place to put them, though. Put them in Italy. It doesn't matter. Some city. Naples. They can go into Naples. But I want to transport them eventually to Cyrenaica. So they're in the wrong sea zone for that. Look at the Italian situation. There's no good cities over here on the boot. So all the cities are up here, as you can see. So they'll need to move over to Toronto and then set sail through a troop convoy here. British have not interdicted this sea, so they can't stop that. All right. The thing about the Italians, though, is they either have a troop convoy, which is a supply, or a troop convoy. So if they put it on supply so they can do operations, they can't bring in any units in unless some escort convoys are put down there by the Germans. So it's a slow build up, and let's get started with it. And one more 1, 2, 3. Not sure where I want to put it. I guess in Vienna. We'll put an extra one here. Okay, so that's the setup of those units. Now we also need to pick a new card. I have to decide also if I'm going to use this. This might be a good time to try to use this to get the, not demand the Polish corridor, but the Partisans and Quislings card from the Fortunes of War. This can be useful to get the French fleet in. The French fleet unit can be quite useful for the Germans. You can see they've got a few ships, but it's more the support unit. And since we are going for Sealion, we might just go ahead and try to do that. Okay, so let's see what the next step is. The next step is support. Now, it was important here. Yeah, you have to apply declare war. I'm going to check that rule. I think there used to be a rule, maybe they've changed it, that you need to have some kind of convoy marker to declare war against something that's not adjacent to you. Let me check rule 19.10 and report back. Yes, it looks like they've changed that rule. The Operation Weserübung requires that it be a treaty target minor country. The definition of target minor country only now says there has to be a naval zone next to it that doesn't require a convoy marker placement there. What was happening, sometimes the Germans would forget to put their convoy there, and then, oh, no, I can't declare war on Norway anymore. It was also a signal to the British that, okay, it looks like they might be setting that up. So that's an important point that they changed that. Okay, so the decision-making process for the Germans now, they're going to pick, historically they picked a treaty. We'll do the same thing. Treaty card gives us a chance to get some minor allies in. And I think this is a good time to do that. So we'll put that underneath and set that over here. Okay, case yellow is discarded. And we're ready to move on. Now we're at the political events segment. This is when we bring out the partisans and quislings. And we have to roll for the effect on that. Let's zoom in on the card. You can maybe see that, hopefully. We're looking for a 1 or 2 major effect. Minor effect won't be so bad. Minor effect will probably put... I'm not sure what we'll do if the minor effect is rolled. 5 or 6, we get no effect. We'll pick the white die for this. And here's the results. 6. Oh. And that's it. It doesn't do anything. Card gets discarded. And that's it. Pretty annoying. So the fortunes of war did not help the Germans get the French fleet. What a shame. Okay, so continuing on, then the political events segment is over, and we go to the support segment. The Germans don't really need any support. Let's keep in mind, though, that they got to put a blitz marker where the airdrop unit is going to come from. So we'll just place that now up there in Denmark. And I don't think that's the right time to put it. Return to base. Beachhead maintenance support. Convoy marker. Okay, we need to have a troop convoy marker. Actually, no. Needs to be a supply marker up here. Let's just put that in the picture. Supply marker. Because we're going to have to be in supply once we land the airborne unit so they can convert over to a corps upon landing. Okay. Blitz marker. Oh yeah, that happens next. Okay. And beachhead failure. Okay, next is the organization segment. Let me take care of that off camera. Okay, so did a few organizational things. Hadn't really decided what to do about all these extra HQs in France. If I'm going to be invading England, though, maybe I want to keep them there. So haven't decided what I want to do about that yet. So I decided not to break it down, even though they would probably come back before May, June happens, or March, April. But it's not guaranteed they come back in March, April, so it's probably good to have a couple of these things to really threaten Britain. Okay, so the other tricky thing to think about is allocation of air forces. The British have 3 air units, I believe. You have to take a look at these things when you're assigning that. Yeah, they have an air force coming in a couple of turns. And they have 2 more, so they can deploy 3. I need to probably deploy 4, which means I need 8 LBAs within range. So how many LBAs do I have? And that's an important point. Let's see. I'm not sure when the next one's coming in on the turn track. I got one way back in March, April. So I need to leave 7 in the area of France and northern Germany. So we'll pick those out and rebase them. We're going into the operational movement phase, and I'll get that done off camera. So for the air bases, I've left 7 in the area. For 1 to come back in March, that's 8 for 4 air forces. But I sent the other 2 because one of the things you have to do is use these for multiple tasks. And if I'm going to have an air superiority, or at least parity in Egypt, I need a couple down there. So I've sent 2 down there. The British have 1 strong one down there. So we'll see who wins that battle when we get into that. Okay, so let's do the operational movement of the ground forces. One thing to remember is to fully mobilize the Africa Corps. When it comes in, you need 1 German armor and 1 Italian mech armor and 1 Italian infantry and 3 total German infantry. So you got to get those corps down there, and you got to get them across to Africa so you can really set up the right force. Okay, I should have pointed out that I decided not to do any sub-raids or, well, sub-patrols or surface raids for the Germans this turn, as I don't want to lose any of my air forces, not actually my ships really, to any incursions or interceptions by the Allies. It's just not ideal to lose any ships for anything other than, sea lion invasions at this point. If I was going east and I needed to try to take out some troop markers, you can kind of mess them up. If you take out the troop markers, the British can't reinforce things or bring troops back from Africa. But they're not really heavily deployed in any area at the moment, so decided against it. So the operational movement's done. You see I've moved up very strongly on the coast here, garrisoning all the cities. You need to do that. Oh, this guy hasn't moved yet. Let me just move him up. 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll go to Paris. I've even got a 663 in Paris, so I'm really loaded for bear. This 562 is just going to head there and then break down next time. You see I'm sending some troops over towards the Yugoslavia area, which is Western influenced, if you can see that. Yeah, it looks like it. There's Western influence there. So Hungary has got Eastern influence, or I'm sorry, Axis influence on it, and Soviet influence in Poland. So if I do attack Poland at that point in time, Russia will be coming into the war, so not a good idea. Not a good idea. So we're setting up for the Sealion card is basically what we're doing. Okay, now we can go into the operational movement phase. Done. Combat phase. So we do blitz combat. That includes the paradrop here. Bleep. So it goes like that. Okay, that's the only combat that's going to happen. And at that point in time, I think in the operational movement phase, before that, this will come off and go into the delay box and turn into a German corps. And then at this point in time, we are allowed to reset. I guess we actually do not need supply anymore, because I can move in the reserve movement phase, which is what I'm going to do, and I'll show you that. Just move into Oslo, stay in Copenhagen, and that will conquer that country for us. Okay. Other than that, we might have some reserve movement. Let me take care of that. Okay, so the reserve movement's now accomplished. I've moved into Oslo up here and used the troop convoy to ship a unit from Amsterdam up into Oslo. They can start heading up towards Narvik. I've left, normally I wouldn't do this, I've left Bremen open, but the British don't have a surface fleet to do an invasion with, and they can't do an invasion, well, of this area anyway with an air unit. There's no air base in range. So there's no invasion possibilities for the British. No Narvik expedition is going to happen either. Up there, let's see, I don't know if you see Narvik. I don't normally need to show it, but up here, this is a German. So this is now mine as the axis, and this is now mine as the axis. So barring any losses of any gray colored objectives, it will go into axis tied next turn. Now, this is good and bad for the Allies, because the Allies now, that frees up some extra cards that they can play. But it also gives the Germans some delay DRM. So we're going to make sure that starting next turn, we take a careful look at the delay box DRMs, as they'll start to become impacted by the war state and VP state on the map. Okay, down in North Africa, and I really have a problem getting to North Africa. Hopefully you can see it here. I didn't have supplies. I sent troops over. You can rebase without supplies. So I've sent 2 Italians over. But that does not allow me to move adjacent to the British, because it's the reserve movement phase, and you're not allowed to move into an enemy zone of control. So that's the situation there, though. They're not really in any danger from this thing. I suppose it could come around here and put them out of supply. So it would probably be prudent for the Italians to move a guy over there so that they can't get outflanked by the British, who would have designs on Cyrenaica, as they should. Okay, so we've stacked up on the border of Yugoslavia. We're ready for Sealion, even though at this point in time we can't do anything. He's got, well, I have 2 support units that could go in there. Scratch Convoy could go in if I put an air unit on London. It's just not practical right now, because I really can't get enough stuff over there. He's going to be able to take me out with his 2 air units that he's got sitting in reserve over here in his support unit marker box. So it's not going to be possible. It'll be mud next turn, and then snow for the next 2 turns after that. So no Sealion is going to happen until March, April of 41. And then the main Sealion card will be played in May, June of 41. I'm pointing at the turn track. You can't see it, but it's up here. So that's the first possibility of an invasion attempt, a mud turn, then a full summer of trying to get on the beaches. Should be an entertaining time, as I expect a lot of action with the LBAs trying to fight out the Battle of Britain, which is not happening now, but it will happen later. So, any more comments for that phase? I don't think so. Final administration phase. Conditional events, we always have to look at the permanent conditional events. Minor country conquest, done. Got that done. So that puts the Netherlander unit in that box for reactivation later, if they ever go back up there. Let's see. Occupation of minor axis. No, I have German units in Italy, but there's no multi-step unit there. Internment, there's nothing to intern. And shipyard loss, no, that hasn't happened either. Option card conditional events for the Axis, there are not any. So we move on to the Allied turn. So the Allies are discarding the Dial Plan card from last summer. Didn't do what they needed it to do, but Britain's still intact, so that's probably good. What's their next card? Can't even remember. It's been so long. All right. Western military aid. Okay. Yeah. Britain or France's posture is war. I really placed this because I get one British replacement step. That was the key thing. I need steps in England now. And get a nice 1-2-2 defensive unit and put that here. Now, there's a British London HQ unit that can be built. I don't know when it's coming in. Is it already in? Maybe it's already in. It is already in. Okay, so what we want to do then is definitely put that there, and then I'll quickly do an operational movement phase. I'll be able to build that HQ next time. I also get a minor country step. Problem is I don't have any minor countries left, so that's a wasted step. Can't use it for anything. Okay, so we're going into the political events segment, and before that, though, I've got to pick a card. So let me evaluate the options for the Western Allies here. So the British don't have a lot of choices. They did a wartime mobilization, as I recall. Sometimes I got to remember exactly what's played, not put them all in one big pile of discards. But as I recall, the British mobilized during the war. So they'll have to play Churchill diplomacy in order to play one of their other cards here, Operation Compass, because I didn't play card 5A. I played the other one. So I got to play Churchill diplomacy. I don't want to play Operation Jupiter because I lose Lend-Lease. And I can't play Commonwealth Support yet, and I haven't played it. So Churchill diplomacy it is. Seems a bit lame, doesn't it? But that's what we got, Churchill diplomacy. Guess he's still trying to get stuff to happen. All right, so we got the Western military aid card now. And we are going to, let me zoom in on this one. And there's the zoom. I guess I can zoom into 4 times. Look at that. Wow. So we've got these possible options here. So there's no DRMs because there's nothing that can modify the die roll at this point. The victory score is at 0. So we roll the die, and it is a 5. 5 or 6 is a military aid result. A military aid. Don't know if that helps very much. Military aid. 19.21. This is going to be helpful if France was still in the war, but they're not. So 19.21. Let me look that up in the handy dandy. Here it is. The phasing player may do one of the following. Receive a minor country step. Nope, don't have that. Receive 1 colonial step unit. Yeah, that can be helpful. If I have a colonial step, unfortunately, I do not have such a step yet. The only one I have is France, and it's not in the map yet. Will be next turn. Maybe I should have delayed this, or I can do a delay reduction and resolve it immediately. So delay reduction is all we got. Let's try that. So yeah, delay reduction looks pretty good. We can pick the Air Force that's coming in the winter and move it to come here. I've got some others. I don't know if I have anything else on the delay box for the Western Allies, so that's the only thing they can do with that result. Rest of the turn is pretty simple for the Brits. They're going to keep their air forces in Britain set up to build that next turn, so that's good. They might wind up breaking this down next turn so they can... I don't know if they need to. There's not going to be an invasion, so they probably don't need to do that. All right. So operational movement. Everything stays the same in England. Over here, could move the troop markers around, but I'm not doing that. I don't have anything else I can send to the Middle East. That's all done. So could rebase and play around with my fleets a little bit. I'll just leave them the way they are. Can't be bothered. Okay. Might want to consider doing a raid on the Italian fleet, though. And I don't have any decent... Looking at the Gibraltar things, I don't have any decent carriers there, but I think they'd come out of Alexandria anyway. So that's in the same sea zone if I wanted to try it. The Alexandria fleet down here is actually way over here, fleet number 4. Here it is. So let's put fleet number 4 up here. We can really look at it. Up in the Atlantic Ocean. Everything happens in the Atlantic. You might, if you watch my previous video, I did an example of the fleet coming out of Scapa Flow, but I grabbed the wrong fleet. I actually used the fleet out of Alexandria when I played that. Doesn't matter though. It was a good illustration. Okay, so I do have a decent carrier here for a possible raid, although it's a kind of a weak carrier. But if I can go in there and sink a couple of Italian ships, that would be nice. But I'm not going to do that yet. I'll hold off on that, as I'll do that in illustration for a different time. So, that said then, we've done organization, we've done op movement, none, there's no combat, there's no reserve, administration phase. So we just look at the conditional events. Really, that's where we're at. Conquest of a Western minor country. Reactivation, no. Liberation, no. Finest hours, done. Paris threatens, done. Reduced U.S. impact won't happen unless London's taken. I find that this rule's a bit pro-Axis, because if you control London, Oslo, you see that star on London here? And then I think one other city, is it Paris? Yeah, London, Paris, and Oslo reduces the U.S. impact level. So, I think that should be 2 cities in England, not Oslo, which is really pretty easy to take. Although I can understand why, because the U.S. has to come around here and use Iceland and stuff. So, I don't know, maybe Brest would be better, but I don't know. They didn't change that rule, so that's what it is. But we don't have it yet. France rises, no chance. Lend-Lease to France, irrelevant. Internment, none. Mediterranean fleet release, that was done long ago. And shipyard loss, no. Okay. So, one thing we do get to do is roll for an allied ship. On a 1 or a 2, rolled a 4. So, no, they didn't get a Western allied ship this turn. And Russia will also get to roll when it's their turn. So that's the end of the allied turn. Let's move on to Russia. So we've got Molotov diplomacy now. This is a recyclable card, as you can see by this symbol here. So it goes back into the Russian deck. It just can't be played again this turn. So I'll put it there. And what did the Russians have? Aha! Demand the Finnish frontier, as they normally did. They're a little bit ahead of schedule, though, as they're doing it now. But that's mostly because the civil war in Spain didn't last very long. Okay, so let's resolve this in the delay box. This is where they get their interceptor and 2 more LBAs. That's the most important result from this whole thing. And 3 Russian steps. So let me get that done. Okay, so got the Russian stuff laid out here. They rolled a 2 for their shipbuilding, so sayonara to that. Demanding of the Finnish frontier. Got the 3 steps, put them on the front line, a couple near Leningrad, one in Minsk. So now we're to the political events segment. And yeah, of course, the Russian interceptor and LBAs are in the delay box, which is slightly off the camera here. Okay, so political events segment. So if Russia's posture is entente pact, yes, it's pact. Okay, we and Finnish frontier belongs to Finland, apparently, neutral minor country. Yes, that would be Finland. Select that country and roll a die. Okay, so we roll the die. Let's let you witness this so you know I'm not cheating. So we've got the black die. Oh, probably a kiss of death for the Russians. There's no DRM because it is now 0 points, as we mentioned before. So here we go. And a 5. Ceded land. So the Russians had it easy. Russia's postures, not war. Okay, so we cede the land, basically. Get the marker out and put that as Soviet territory. The Soviets will have a garrison requirement, which, if it hasn't changed since the last time I played this, 4 steps of infantry, or 4 steps really, but normally you just use infantry. So we got to put them in the garrison areas. Let's take a look at that. So here's Finland up here. And I think we got to make it a little taller. Okay. So Finland, there's the Finnish border area. These all connect. I think they changed that. I think they used to be 2 separate areas. I think they put it as one big area. And then there's an area up here that you can also put 2 steps in, which is not a bad idea because you might want to interdict that port. The Germans might need to come in there to save Finland. All right. So let's take care of all this. And we'll do operational movement and stuff. Get this all squared away. Okay, so I forgot to mention, I picked Zhukov here. This is really an important card to play at this time. You see historically winter 1940-41. Because they have to play a peace offer card. And that card needs to be played before they can play one of their mobilization cards, which would be normally then played in May, June. So if you're a Soviet player, you need to remember this. Just in case, now this is obviously not going to be Barbarossa. I haven't even considered what it might mean to not play this card on time. I'm going to do it anyway, because it will then hit in winter. The peace offer card, March and April. And then if Barbarossa's played, I'm ready to play a huge mobilization card. So that's why this card's being played now, even though there probably won't be any attacks with it. That's that. Okay, so we demanded the Finnish frontier. It fell easily. No historical results to be had here for the Russians, where they lost a bunch of stuff the first time they tried. Okay, so we've done all of the operational movement phase, the combinations and everything like that. Russia's hard to take in at one fell swoop. As you can see, I don't have Sevastopol on here, which has a fortress. And up north, you can see we've got 2 steps here, 2 more steps here. Still need to garrison that, because Finland will probably come into the war now against the Russians, because there's a German, because of the ceded border, they get a influence marker. And this they can play with their Barbarossa or their Sealion card. They get to automatically trigger, apply an influence to any miners, and so that's going to bring them in, probably bring Budapest in if I don't bring it in sooner. which I probably won't, because I'm probably going to use the treaty cards for countries like Vichy France, Spain, probably not Yugoslavia, but and I can't do Greece, possibly Bulgaria. I'm not sure who would be next. I might need Romania in the war. Have to think about that, but that's not the immediate concern of the Germans right now. So, to end the turn now, so we've done the Russians' movement phases. We tried to get a ship. So now we're into the final administration phase. They're not going to declare war on anybody. They're not allowed to. Conditional events for the Soviets. Conquered Soviet minor country reactivation, irrelevant. Axis Western minor country liberation, not available. Emergency mobilization. Emergency mobilization. Should I have done that already? That's over here. You can see it. Let me zoom in on that. It's up at the top, isn't it? There it is, Russian emergency mobilization. This event is played once per game, only if total war is in effect. An Axis unit is in Russia, the Baltic states. The Germans are not in the Baltic states because Lithuania is ceded land. Belarusia, Caucasus, Crimea, Donbass, or the Ukraine. So if they're penetrated into that area, then these come in. So this stuff won't be coming in until such time that total war is in effect. Can you see that? Is that visible to you? Yes, it is. Right here. Okay. One of the reasons I might want to get a camera instead of using a phone is I've got this holder and it holds the phone great, but it blocks off 1/3 of the screen with the holding mechanism. And the holding mechanism then doesn't allow me to see sometimes where I'm trying to point. So, just a little technical detail that's probably interesting only to me. Okay, so that is going to end the turn. We now have the delay phase. Let's see. Delay DRMs. None of those. USCL is still 0. No material shortages. So the Germans have 0 DRM for their delay units. Voila. And the Russians, Allied Crusade and Total War. War production, and there are no. Jet fighters, there are none. Bombers, and there's no bombers in the strategic warfare box. So they're rolling zeros too. So let's roll these off. Start with the Germans. Here we go. The black die will be the airborne unit. Oh, terrible. 6 turns before we get the airborne unit. Where does that put us? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, they can still build it in May, June. So just in time for Sealion. Good thing, huh? And then they get this 3-4-2, which they don't need next turn. Now the Russians normally be more concerned about this. They'll go yellow, green, and blue. Yellow and green for the relatively decent interceptors. Red, green, and blue. So red, that's not red, yellow, green, and blue. Okay, so we did this. I didn't roll it in front of you. Too bad. So next turn they get a 3-4. 5 turns they get another one. And the interceptor in 4 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's all in good time for the Russians. And that will end this turn. Turn marker phase. Mobilization marker will now come off for the Italians. That's no longer applicable. And now they can start moving outside their country if they want to do that. Oh, little, yeah. Okay, it's actually not the turn advance phase because we, it is the advanced turn phase, but it's not the end of the season. Try to get my facts straight around here. let's see what comes in. Okay, wow. Look, there's the colonials that they could have used for the Western military aid, but they still might get one of them for the British. Russians, the fighter we talked about. Italians get some stuff. Germans get an air force. This HQ is Vamonos. No more French HQs for you, monsieur. Okay, I better make sure there's not a V on there, but I don't think so. I think the only HQ they could possibly get now is if they make France a partnership country later in the game. That would be the Western Allies. Or possibly even the Germans could make France a partnership country. That's an interesting idea. Okay, here's the two missing U-boats I've been talking about all this time. They finally come in. So we might do some U-boat patrols and some other things. And yes, the Moscow fortress. So let's place them on the cards and we will commence with the, what is it? September-October 1940 turn, finishing off the season. Okay, the German turn's done. They did a bit of reorganization, sent a few things down to North Africa, spread out things a little bit there so that they can probably get a supply convoy starting next turn so they can build up a bit. So we'll do that arrangement down here. Okay, that looks good. Germans are garrisoning Naples for them. They don't have any air units here, but it might be worth... No, I'm not going to worry about it. Again, the British can't do any sort of invasion right now. Okay, so that's really it for the Western Allies. The deployments in Italy aren't that crucial. The British might have considered moving forward there, but now that they can be outflanked, they're going to have to fall back to Mersa Matruh. So I'll take a look at that situation with you later. Essentially, the British are done. They do have to roll for their military aid. Here's the roll. Western military aid with A4. And, guarantee table. Something exciting going on. So we take a look at our guarantee table. Let's focus in on this a little bit. Here, I'll bring this over here. And I think I can zoom in again. I had another zoom level. I didn't see how to get that. Now it's not showing up. I don't know how to get it. Okay, so we're on the guarantee table right here. Rolling. Rolling, rolling, rolling. Rolled a 1. It didn't go into the thing, though. And it's a 1. Okay, I was destined to roll a 1 for that. A 1 means we move to the conference table. So on the conference table, let's see what we can get. A 3. Oh, the neutral's pressure. That's a good result for the Allies, and I'll tell you why. They are able to pressure the Vichy fleet out of the game, which is something the Germans are not happy about. Let's check this out. So this represents the attacks on Mers el-Kabir and in Oran, and or just the French saying, okay, we won't deploy any fleets for anybody. Let me just check that and confirm. That's usually the best choice for the Western Allies. And yes, Vichy fleet attacked is the result. Vichy fleet attacked right here. If Vichy is a neutral minor country and the Axis faction has not taken control of the French surface fleet, remove it from the game. If using SK, consult 10.6 as well. So, let's see what that means. So this surface fleet is gone. Poor Germany. This is going to affect their invasion possibilities, perhaps. Uncertain about that. Okay, so now let's look at the Shift Krieg rules 10.6. Here at my fingertips. One good thing about this game, you can look up rules. You don't have to memorize them 100%. You do need to know certain outcomes, though, because it'll screw up your game. Like I was mentioning before about the Soviet Zhukov takes command card. You got to play that at the right time, or you're seriously in trouble. Okay. All right. So, if the Western faction selects this option, remove all ships belonging to Vichy as well, not the ones awaiting liberation. So these are either sunk or scuttled. Goodbye, ships and fleet. Okay, one problem solved for Britain, which they kind of needed that result since they made probably a dubious choice to send their fleet in instead of using the Commonwealth card for the Pacific War situation. Still in effect here. That's still stuck in the box, and so are these. Now, the next time Pacific Commitment comes up, they might be able to get them back. That would be nice, wouldn't it? But not yet. Okay, so now the Brits move. They've moved back to Sealion so they can't get surrounded by the Germans. 1, 2, 3. Oh, I can still be surrounded by the Germans with the German armor down there. They're going to have to do something about that. So here's where, okay, I don't want to get too lazy here. Should the Brits interdict the Med, closing up Tobruk and making it impossible for some supplies to get down? The argument in favor of that is that they don't have to retreat all the way back to Alexandria with only one step of units. Let's see if I can get this boom. Can do a lot of things, but it can't quite do it all. All right, so there we've located North Africa. I did it. So as you can see, that's the situation. Get it up a little bit more, down a little bit more. There we go. All right. Things still moving a bit. You move these booms around, the screws become a little unloosened. All right. So what we have here, the German army units here. And so it could go 1, 2, 3, 4, cutting it off from supply. They could probably also get a 2-to-1 attack. If they did that, they might take that risk. That would really open up the Middle East. The Allies cannot afford that. Okay. Now they could advance forward here because they're in supply. They always have an automatic supply convoy from the Middle East box through the Suez Canal. I'll show you this. Okay, so Middle East box here. Supplies come through the canal. Supply convoy automatic there. I don't dream of taking any more units out of England right now. It's going to be a tough fight as it is. They have constructed the London HQ at least. So that can make it a bit of a battle as well. Should be interesting. That Marine will come in handy if they can jump over to Dover, but we'll worry about that later. All right. So if I do that, 1, 2, 3, 4, then the Germans will be out of supply, but then they can go in because there's no Zocs. So that's not a viable solution. It might be worthwhile since there are no... The only thing they could intercept with would be a valuable German air unit. So it might be worthwhile to consider, and I'll think about this and do this later, to go ahead and send out it'd have to be Force H, a convoy into the Central Med, shutting down these ports. It won't shut down Tripoli, though. And that's a problem because they'll still get supplies from there. So that's not actually going to work. I'd have to shut down both sectors. I cannot afford to do that. So, tough situation. But I think they need to fall back here. Because if they go here, the Axis armor can isolate them with their Zoc. Here they cannot. And if I go all the way back to Elegelia, they only get one stack of units to attack. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2 to 1. Wow. I think, though, yeah, it's too bad I didn't get one of my military aids in because I had Canadian and French units. Well, Canadian and French units can't be helped. Can't be useful down there in the Middle East yet. Commonwealth support can't be played. Well, it's not an ideal situation, but the other good thing is a 2-to-1 attack is not an ideal situation for the Axis because, well, they can get an exchange. I think if it's an exchange, if I'm not mistaken in this game, an exchange can either be treated as a retreat or loss of a step. Let me see what that means for the Allies. They might be able to retreat even though the Axis will take a step loss. Yeah, the saving grace for a 2-to-1 attack, which I could handle, so I can stay up here, is that 3 of the results are exchanges. And if the Axis retreats, I have to do nothing as the Allied. If they take a step loss, then I either have to retreat 1 hex or take a step. So the only result, really, that could be a disaster at 2-to-1 would be a 1 if I have to retreat 2. That would have to push me back all the way to Alexandria. And he still wouldn't be able to take El Alamein unless he had a blitz card to do it. It is always summer there. So he wouldn't have to have a blitz card. He'd just have to have exploitation. So he would be able to, if he rolled a 1, that could be the worst case. So I'll stand here, and I will not waste my special, precious support units to protect that at this point. But I would like to have more power down there than I've got, that's for sure. That's for darn sure. Okay, so that's really it for the Western Allies. I'll see if there's anything else just to make sure. Now the Western Allies are done. You can see down in London here, I've created the London HQ. So this is where the Marine, as I was mentioning before, I think they can cross the LC hex side like this as an invasion, and then in the reserve movement phase, they could soak off on the HQ if they so desired. The British, the other guys here, I'm going to have some beachheads if I can get through the defenses, and they would be attacking Southampton with a lot of air. They'd need it, but they got some British air to take care of first. It's going to be a delay die roll battle. They'll probably want to start it in March and April to see what they can do to try to get something going over there. All right. That's after a few more turns, though. So the Western Allies are done. French fleet eliminated. Let's see what happens with the Russians now. Russians have already demanded the Finnish frontier. They finally got their fortification for Moscow. So that takes 1 step to build. That's on there as a 2-step unit. They'll build up here in Finland. So they got that guy way up there. It's a funny place to have a garrison unit, but there you go. Okay. Also, I think as a result of these Russians taking these frontline hexes, I believe, I'll check it later, that some of these fortresses are removed because they've been invested by the Russians by taking them out. Okay. What else do the Russians want to do? It might behoove them to consider, again, let's get this HQ up here. You can do that in the reserve movement phase. These babies, put one here. 3, where was it? Right here. 1, 2, 3. Get that down to Kiev in the reserve phase. This guy will get to Smolensk in the reserve phase. Get some armor units, build them up there. Okay, that's really it for the Russians as well. Let me just scope over here and see if there's anything else that they need to do. But that's pretty much it. This game can move very quickly when it's not the summertime, really. And there's nothing major going on for support unit combat. I hope I'm not trying to skip through this and be a little bit lazy, but it's really hard to cut off these Mediterranean supplies until the U.S. gets in, and you can really, block off the Western Med and the Central Med and keep them from supplying North Africa that way. That's why Tripoli is such an important hex for the Axis to own. And in fact, they should get more than one step there as soon as possible, because if we get another one of those support the nationalists' cause, I might be able to take one of those units off, and then that would be an unowned port. Ports and dependents aren't part of the home country, so they become basically neutralized. They need to have a step or at least a detachment in there to keep them viable. Okay, so that is really going to take us to the final segment of the game. We still have some delay results here. 562, the BEF had to be used to create the HQ, so that'll be the yellow die. Ooh, big 6s for both of them. That's not good for the Brits. 1, 4, 5, 6. That BEF's out of it for a while. And so is this thing, but a 562 isn't that important. Okay. That's going to push us to the next turn, where I'll end this video here. These guys come in. Another German Air Force and a 342. So now the Germans have plenty of support units, but not much they can do with them in the winter, except in North Africa. So we might see some action down there. We'll see. And that's it. Thanks for watching this. Appreciate your time. If you liked it, please subscribe, comment. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? If you didn't like it, I'm amazed you made it all the way through the video. And thank you for that. Ciao for now.